Hey guys, welcome back to the channel Lone Wolf 902. Today I'm out in a hammock hot tent on a solo overnighter. It's going to be a great time. Right behind the camera there is a lake. I got this woodland all to myself, very private. I got to grab my saw and I got to go get some firewood because I'm going to be having an indoor fire tonight inside of the hammock, which is going to be really nice and warm. But I'm also going to be cooking on the outdoor fire because I don't want all that smell trapped inside of my tent overnight. So I got a little bit of tasks to complete before darkness sets in. Got my saw, got to go find some wood. Let's go. All right, I got two really nice pieces of dead oak, and this is going to burn really hot and really long. So I'm going to cut most of the stuff to stove length because I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of cooking outdoors. What I do have to put outdoors is just hamburger patties on a grill. So I'm just going to make a little rock kind of fire area, a little fire pit. Just enough to cook my hamburgers, and that's basically it. Everything else is going to be indoors. Now I already know the length of my stove, so I'm going to go ahead and buck some of these up in stove length and then baton them down and then get them all inside of the tent and start on that outside fire pit. Alright guys, so as you can see, I've got the outdoor fire going. I've got all the wood prepped, both for outdoors and indoors. I left these round for outside because I'm not going to be doing a whole lot out here, so I'll probably toss 1 or 2 of those on there and that's about it. But as far as inside goes, all that stuff is prepped and ready to go in the stove for later on tonight. Now I do have my grill and my spice kit. I got a couple things out here getting ready to cook. I'm just waiting for those flames to die down, and then I want to get my grill on the fire and get my hamburgers on there and get that cooking. Okay guys, I'm all done with my supper. Just want to bring you guys up to speed as to what's going on right now. I've got the stove going and it is very, very hot in here. So I'm actually going to leave these two main doors open for quite some time until it actually gets really, really dark. And then I'm going to damp this down and shut the doors. Basically crawl inside and lounge inside of the tent for the evening. And yeah, basically enjoy the stove and the sound of the crackling fire. So it was snowing off and on a little bit. The outside of the tent actually did accumulate a little bit. And then the snow stopped and the wind came in, blew it all off. So I am hoping tonight it does snow and we get a significant amount. It is forecasted, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. So I'm basically just going to do a once over, kind of go around the outside of the tent, make sure everything's good, make sure I got everything inside, like my saw right up here. I don't want that getting snowed on. So I'm just going to go around, make sure I got everything cleaned up, and then basically close this door and see how the heat builds. And if it gets too hot, the bonus with having a hammock hot tent is this zipper up top where your straps go through. I can unzip that down and then vent it out that way. So I am basically going to be taking it easy for the evening, and then who knows, I might carve something. I got a lot of wood here, so I might carve, I might whittle away, and basically just kick back and relax. Good morning, guys. Last night was absolutely amazing inside of the Hammock hot tent. I have got to say, laying in this hammock, basically floating above the wood stove, it is nothing but a hot bed underneath of you. So, I'll bring you guys up to speed a little bit on how that went. I have 2 underquilts on my hammock right now. Currently, I have 2 single one tigress underquilts. I think they're rated for, like, the lowest is plus 5 degrees Celsius. I'm not too sure on that. You'll have to jump on the website and check the specs for these. But I do have 2. And then inside, I have a gigantic down top quilt, which is a winter top quilt. So when I crawled in here last night, zipped the doors shut, I was laying in here. I did end up watching a movie. Pretty awesome. I had a lot of fun with that. But I was laying in here. I stoked up the wood stove with a couple round logs just before bed. So I tossed in 2 of these guys, and it burned all the way from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I looked over and there were still red hot coals. All I had to do was toss in a couple more pieces of wood, and it took right off. But last night, once I shut the door, damped it down, and I was going to sleep, I was laying in here. I got so hot, and keep in mind, I never sleep with my sweaters or my jeans. I strip down to a really thin long sleeve shirt and lawn john. So basically just a base layer system, and that's it. And I was in my hammock and my base layers with my top quilt. It got so pleasantly warm in here, and it is now minus 10 degrees Celsius. Last night it did dip to minus 13 degrees Celsius. So I was laying in here, and I could feel the hot air just pounding into my back, and it was so pleasant. It got so hot that I actually had to reach out, and I had to take off one underquilt. So I only slept with one underquilt on, and the other one I tossed off to the side. And then when I rolled over this morning at 6 a.m. to load that again, I pulled this guy back over because it was starting to get a bit chilly. But it was definitely an eye-opener. So if you do get a hammock hot tent, you can, I've done this many times, but this is the first time that I've only brought 2 underquilts. You could pretty much go with one underquilt. If you want to stay up and load the stove, or do like I did, load 2 big rounds in there and do it that way, you could definitely cut the weight on under insulation and bring the top insulation, because that top quilt trapped all of the hot air soaking through the hammock and the quilt, and it got trapped in the bubble in the top quilt. And I was super warm. Like, I'm not joking. There were a couple times where I was almost too hot. I kicked my top quilt down, vented, and then pulled it back up and went to sleep. So very, very warm in here, very cozy. Absolutely loved it. I had this nice warm tingle feeling down my whole back, right down to my butt from that wood stove hitting the bottom of the hammock, and I was toasty warm. So right now I'm still enjoying my cup of coffee, and I went ahead and preheated the kettle so it's still full of hot water. And the reason why I preheated it is because I do want to eat right after, but I am going to make another coffee. I wanted to use my mocha pot because I like a real strong cup of mocha coffee in the morning to kind of wake me up, and then after that I like doing just a regular coffee. So I do have enough water in here for coffee and oatmeal, because I do have 2 packs of oatmeal. But the problem with that is I only have the 1 cup, so I didn't bring any other cups or pots other than the kettle, and I don't eat out of the kettle. I never put food in my kettle, only water. So I'm going to finish my coffee, and then I'm going to put my water and oatmeal in my cup, eat my oatmeal, and then I'm going to give a quick rinse out, and then I'm going to make another cup of coffee and enjoy that. So this hammock hot tent is actually large enough if I were truck camping, or if I pulled my gear in on a pulk sled in the snow. It is actually large enough because whatever you're seeing on this side is also doubled on the other side. Now on the other side right now, all I have is one long piece of hardwood for firewood and my backpack, and that's it. I didn't utilize that space at all. But one of the things is, if I push back here, you can kind of get the idea of how much space is in here. If I brought my truck or a sled, I could have brought a table and a chair, a full table and a full chair, and I could have placed my table and chair right here, and I could have a dining area sitting down with the table, nice. And then on the other side, I could have brought, I mean, if I brought someone else, they could sleep over there on a cot on the ground. If you don't like the hammock in here during the daytime, you can actually unclip it and then ball it up on the ground over there, so you can put it on top of your backpack and then open up the whole shelter and then have a table chair system. Or maybe you don't want to bring a hammock at all. Maybe you just want the shelter, and you could fit 2 or 3 cots in here. You can have a workstation, you can have a cook area, you can have table chairs. That the possibilities, I mean, there's just so much with this shelter. But I will say, if you are going to purchase a shelter of this size, or even this one, get a large stove. Get a large stove that's going to really heat the whole area, because with the sidewalls going up, it's not your typical TP configuration where it traps that hot air. You do really need a large stove to get the heat circulating around. But once you're in here with the doors shut and the stove is cranking, it gets hot. It gets really, really nice. So I had such a great time last night. Like I said, laying in the hammock, having all that hot air coming up underneath. I was laying up in the heat channel. Get this kettle off the heat here. Keep in mind that when you got a wood stove going, the heat starts here, so the heat rises. Well, if you're laying on the ground, you don't get a whole lot of that side heat unless you're right on top of the stove. Being up in the hammock, I'm up in the heat channel is what I like to call it. So I'm floating in the heat channel, which you guys know in teepees, when you get the stove going and you're on the ground and you sit up and your head is now up in the heat channel, it gets very, very, very hot. So being up here laying in the heat channel is absolutely awesome, and I'm very, very excited to do it again this winter, because I already have 3 or 4 videos of Hammock Hot Tent filmed and edited, ready to go. So it might be a little strange. You guys will see version 1 of this coming this winter, a video that I did last winter. I'm going to upload it, but just keep in mind that's a year old. And then the 2 or 3 videos that I have in this green Hammock Hot Tent, they're already pre-recorded. So if you're watching it now, obviously it's already been released. And then I'm going to continue on with the finalized version of this tent. So we got a lot going on here. But I'm going to relax. I'm going to eat my oatmeal. Oh yeah, apple cinnamon. So I'm gonna have my 2 packs of oatmeal. Like I said, I can only fit 1 pack in the cup at a time, but that's okay. I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna enjoy the sunrise, watch it come up over the lake, and I'll bring you guys back as soon as I'm done. Hear the wind whistling through the treetops. You can hear the crackling of the fire behind me in the wood stove. That's basically it. So I had to come outside because I was lounging around eating my oatmeal, making up my other coffee, and that thing is dangerous, man. That hammock, once you sit down in that hammock and you get warm, you do not want to get out of that hammock. So I had to get out of the tent completely. I had to pull myself out of the tent, come out here where it's cold, and just enjoy the forest, because once you sit back down in that hot hammock, it just sucks you right in and it does not want to let go. So I'm having fun. I'm definitely having fun, and I'm really glad that I went with this setup for this night. So I'm really happy with that. Supper last night was awesome. With the grill out here doing my little hamburgers, that was awesome. Really, really good. I did have some Mr. Noodles inside, so that was tricky. I made Mr. Noodles last night, but I had to make them in my cup, because remember, I don't have another container. So I had to break the brick in half, put it in here, pour the hot water, and then take the kettle lid and put the lid on top. So I made like three batches of noodles to get them all to fit in there. So at the end though, I did have a nice real spicy broth in the bottom, so that was excellent. Nice hot soup, because I don't like cooking in my kettle. I don't like putting food in there because it's impossible to clean everything out underneath the lip and all the little cracks and corners and whatnot, and it's just, I don't put food in my kettle ever. Only water, that's it. Water, coffee, tea, that is it. So, got my coffee now, had my noodles last night. Excellent, loving it. So, I'm definitely going to be looking forward to the winter time, having that out in the winter, as well as the other hot tents, and then doing some cold camping. Going to do some more tarp trips in the snow, and I want to do a cowboy camp, but I want to wait till we get like 2-3 feet of snow once we get dumped on. I'm just going to go out and I'm just going to bring a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag, no tarp, and I'm just going to cowboy camp it out in the snow and enjoy a big bonfire and have fun doing that. So I'm hoping we really get enough snow to do that. I wanted to do it last year, but by the time I got around to it, the snow was gone and didn't really get to it. So this year, hopefully I get lucky. Okay guys, I'm going to be getting packed up shortly, tearing down the whole setup and getting the stove out of the tent. But before I do that, I do want to kind of talk about what I've got going on here for the guy line. So you'll notice that the spark arrestor is guyed out. I did this in such a way that I only had to run one line to the ground. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. This line right here is the only line touching the ground. So what I did is, your hammock is always going to be connected to a tree. So I took the first guy line and I ran it directly to the tree that I'm hanging in, which oriented those 3 holes on the spark arrestor in such a way that this goes to the ground or to an adjacent tree if I had one there, but I ran it to the ground. And then the third one goes down the back side of the hammock, and it actually comes to the corner tie out right here on the other side. So I have the line going over and across the hammock, hooked onto this tab here, and then one going to the tree and one here. So this pipe is actually quite secure. It's pretty warm still, but you can see just me poking it. It doesn't really want to move, but these lines are still loose enough that it's not pulling on the pipe and redirecting it and causing kinks and bends when it gets hot. So very, very secure. I'm really happy with that. Also on the tent, there is the option for a side jack. So if you do have a stove that comes up and then goes out on a side, you could build a tripod over here and run your stovepipe out the side and do it that way, and then you wouldn't really need to guy out over top of the tent. You could just cap your spark arrestor on there and off you go. But I did just want to cover that and kind of show you guys what I've got going on for the spark arrestor and the stovepipe setup. So like I said, I am going to be getting cleaned up. I'm going to take the hammock out and I'm going to get the stove out, and then I'm going to bring the camera around to the front or possibly even the back side and show you how much livable space is inside of the tent, just to give you guys an idea of how much room I had last night versus how much room I didn't even use. All right, so here's the setup. Basically what I brought. I got my basically my entire hammock is right here. I got my 2 under quilts, my hammock, and my top quilt all bundled up right there in one big ball. That's going to take a little bit to pack down because my hands are cold, so I'm just going to jam it in one stuff sack, set it aside, warm my hands up, and continue doing so. Now, I do still have the wood stove full of coals. I took the top off so I can actually warm my hands up because I'm not wearing gloves. I don't like wearing gloves unless they're fingerless gloves, and I cannot find them, so I had to order another pair and they haven't arrived yet. So I do have my leather gloves, but like I said, I don't like gloves on my fingers. I can't feel anything, I can't do anything, so I just don't like it. But I just wanted to show you guys the setup. I have the stovepipe behind me with the spark arrestor. So we got to get all these guy lines off of here and neatly stowed away. The pipe is cool to the touch already. I mean, it only takes about 30-40 seconds for the pipe to get cold after you take it off the stove. So that's really easy to pack away. I'll let the stove burn out. We're going to use that to warm my hands like I was saying, but I want to show you guys the tent empty because there is a load of room inside of this thing. Okay guys, so coming inside of the tent, you can actually see how big and how much room is inside of here. Now this tent only packs down the size of like maybe 2 footballs. So if you remember at the beginning of the video, that stuff size of that pack, of the stuff bag, it doesn't pack down that large. Considering when you bring your hammock, your tent, and your stove, the kit really isn't that large, and all your cooking stuff. So everything fit inside of my 65-liter pack, which even I was surprised at home when I started packing, and I looked and I went, geez, I could fit more in there. So I had to take some insulation out and let it loft to fill the extra space in my pack so I didn't end up packing more gear. But this is an absolute beast of a tent. So sitting in here, you sit down on this piece of firewood. I'm in the back corner. I have about 2 more feet behind me, so I'm not all the way to the back. You can see how much room is inside of here. So you could actually fit, I would say you'd be able to sleep 4 full-size adults going this way on full sleeping pads with no stove. Now, if you had the stove in here, you could fit 3 adults in here, no problem, on the ground or on cots. But with the hammock setup, this is really interesting because you can actually do a double-decker hammock if you really wanted to. I may do a demonstration of that with me and one of my children, where I'm going to sleep on, or I'm going to sleep underneath so I can reach the stove. And then I'm probably going to hang another hammock up higher with my, probably my son. He'll probably come with me. But I may do a demonstration showing that you can actually double-decker the hammocks, one up high, one down low. And the reason why I would go underneath, obviously, for loading the stove, but whoever is on top is going to be warmer than the person underneath because you're going to be in that heat channel. Or you can put a cot down on the ground and then lift the hammock up a little bit and have another sleeping area down on the ground directly under the hammock. Or you can run a cot on the other side of the tent plus a hammock. There's so many configurations, but wanted to show you this with the hammock out of here because if you did want to use this and you're out hunting, this could be a base camp. You could actually have your wood stove in here and one person sleep on the ground with a whole table, chair, workspace area. This is an absolute palace for one person coming out, and it's not that difficult to set up. If you got 2 of your trees, set them up. You can run 2 poles if you like, if you're out in a field. But this is definitely, this is a house. This is basically a house. So I'm going to get this tore down, and like I said, I am getting quite cold, so I'm just going to get everything packed up, jammed in the backpack, and then I'll bring you guys back and we'll wrap this up. Alright guys, I got everything packed away, and I have got to say, my hands are frozen. That took much longer than I thought it was going to. I had to stop and reheat my hands over the coals of that stove, and then go and unpack, and yeah, it wasn't fun. So my hands are still a little cold. Like I said before, I do have a pair of fingerless gloves that are actually on the way. They're just not here yet, so when they arrive, I'll definitely be enjoying them. But I do have everything packed inside of my pack. I've got, the fire is still smoldering a little bit, so I do have to stomp that out. Stick around for a little bit longer just to make sure it's out before I start the hike out of here. Now, I am wearing a wool shirt underneath of this, a nice button-up shirt. So I'm probably going to take my hoodie off. I'm probably going to take this off, even though it is minus 10 degrees Celsius right now. I'm probably going to take this off and strap it to the outside of the pack and hike that way, because although it is cold out in the winter time, you still do break a sweat. You're hiking, you're carrying weight, you're going to break a sweat, and it's best to get this layer off and on your pack before you do start sweating, because then when you do actually stop moving and the sweat will actually freeze to your body, your clothing will get stiff, and it's not fun. So I am going to be taking this off, slapping it on the outside of my bag, and hiking out. But I just wanted to say thank you guys very much for sticking around. Thank you guys for clicking on the video, because this was a very enjoyable time in a hammock hot tent. It's not something you see a whole lot on YouTube right now, but hopefully with this new product that me and One Tigers have teamed up and designed, we will be seeing a lot more of it, because it is a revolutionary way to get out in your hammock and go hot tenting. Because hot tenting on the ground, as you see I usually do, but in this area it's very, very difficult to get a tent on the ground, especially when the ground's frozen. So having that hammock hanging above all of that cuts a lot of that prep time down and out of the way to enjoy more of the camping experience. So I've got to say, for these two trees, they treated me very well. My hammock was nice, it was hung, I was nice and hot inside of the tent, and very, very cozy. So I am going to get this on my back. Like I said, I do got to make sure that fire's completely out, and I'm going to be hiking out and heading home. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.